Hi everyone, this is group number 4, Abigail Smith and Joseph Young. This is our presentation for data meeting number 5, evaluating success and determining next steps. So our agenda for the meeting was an overview of the data action model and establishing where we are now, reviewing our target learning goals and the new data, any causes for the goals that were not reached, proceeding when a learning goal was not met, and then determining what our next steps should be. So the overview of the data action model and where we are now, we are at that last step, evaluating success and determining our next steps. So reviewing our target learning goals that we set earlier in the semester, our SMART objective was that the students will increase the class average by 25% across all formative assessment testing by the end of the school year. Now, at this point in time, we recognize that as a very ambitious goal, and unfortunately, none of our goal objectives were met. However, our goal objective number one did increase, which we definitely saw as a positive thing. We also saw number 2 and 3 as a positive thing because while there was no change, there was no negative trending there. So goal objective number 1 went from a 6.024 to a 7.53. Or that was our objective, sorry, and the actual was at an increase to a 6.054. So an increase is always a positive thing. Number 2 and 3, again, there was no change, which doesn't necessarily mean it's negative. So then we talked about some reasons or causes that the goals were not met and some possible reasons. One I've kind of touched upon already is that the goal was too ambitious. 25% is a large number, and maybe that just wasn't in the cards for this group of kids. Another reason could be that formative progress was not monitored well enough. We did notice that the summative test scores were higher than the formative assessment scores. And some possible reasons of that we mentioned were maybe that the summative test might have been not challenging enough. It might have just maybe all of the activities in class were really geared towards just working on the summative assessment instead of kind of doing building block type things along the way. There could be multiple reasons for that. Maybe we weren't looking at the formative assessments with enough detail as students turned them in, like check for understanding, and not focusing enough on what they were missing before moving forward. Another reason could have been that the selected strategies for the action plan were ineffective, like the strategies that we chose, such as playing more review games and working on study skills. Maybe those were just the wrong skills to focus on for what these kids needed. And then the last possible reason we came up with was that the evaluation metric or post-test was too demanding or invalid. So there are a bunch of reasons here, obviously, that the goals were not met. So how to proceed when the learning goal is not met? Some options to consider are discontinue efforts to fill learning gaps or continue efforts to fill learning gaps and begin a new data cycle. We definitely thought that beginning a new data cycle is the best way to move forward because all the efforts that we had put in so far are not useless at this point. It's just as helpful to try something that doesn't work because then you know that that's not the best fit for the situation. And then this way you can start to come up with new questions and new strategies and even new goals to have. So what should our next steps be? We then considered exploring a new question to answer and constructing a new action plan. So I'm going to explain both of those a little bit more. If we were to go the route of new exploratory questions, after seeing the goals that are still not met, one option that our team has is to create a new exploratory question to continue using the system. So we thought about maybe adjusting our SMART goal from the 25% goal to just continuously growing throughout the course of the year. This seems like more of an attainable goal, although it's less specific. This way, as long as there's no setbacks, as long as everyone's growing all year, we will feel successful with that. So some of those questions there would be, how can formative assessments improve during the year, which goes along with the point I made earlier about really tracking those formative assessments and checking in with students more often if that isn't something that was being done already. And the next question was, what methods can be implemented to enforce study skills throughout the year? So one thing we really thought was important was just drilling study skills, how to study, how to be prepared, how to ask those questions. And that way when the tests come, the formative assessments come around, they will hopefully be more prepared. So the new action plan, we would be reviewing the newest data that we now have and come up with new gaps that were overlooked the first time. So maybe something like including more of a focus on attendance, where this wasn't really our focus the first time around. We may now see that, well, if kids aren't coming to class at a high rate, they're obviously missing a lot of the information, and that can affect formative assessments and summative assessments. So maybe if we focus on attendance first, eventually we'll be able to get those scores up. We'll introduce new questions by shifting our focus to different areas in that data. And then the action plan will be put into place with already having the knowledge of what we worked on all semester, so only being able to improve from there. And then this is just a continuous rotation. So if the second action plan didn't work or saw negative trending, then you just take a look at it again and come up with a new plan.